So we're standing on Si's front deck. It overlooks part of his place here. He can keep an eye on a few of his cattle part of the time. When did you build this house, Si?
Starting last part 89, 90.
Okay. He had one guy, Kevin O'Fay, helping him, and
Another guy, actually. There was another Kevin, too.
two Kevins and one Si, and they built this place. It's well designed. Si and Max laid it out and designed it, and so 89, 99, 2009,
31 years.
31 years. And the deck we're standing on has been out in the rain and the sun for 31 years. It's a pressure-treated, mostly 2x8 substructure on 6x6 beams with 2x4, what kind of cedar?
Alaskan yellow cedar.
Alaskan yellow cedar, which is one of, I think, 4 cedar species that grow up and down the west coast. There's not a lot of it in Oregon, but he's got some on his deck. 31 years is not bad. And we're going to peel it off of here and replace it with 2x6 western red cedar. Beautiful material. And the deck is needing a little bit of TLC. So
Actually, it's had a lot of TLC. Maxine took very good care of it, and that's the only reason it lasted this long.
yeah, so Maxine she's just what a wife ought to be, especially a ranch wife. And among her other myriad chores, besides mowing the lawn and feeding the bummer calves and everything else, does she pressure wash this or just brush it off?
It just gets brushed off, and then she puts the coat of stuff on it.
She seals it and paints it and seals it and paints it and cleans it and squeezed 31 years out of it. So anyhow, we're about to get started. We got to move some stuff and we got to pull off the railing. Si's already pulled off some of the material over there under the house. You can't leave him alone for a minute or he's going to start a job. So we're going to get to work and put a 2x6 top on this 31-year-old deck. So we have a bonus. Si's son Aaron and his grandson Angus just pulled up. They've been out hunting this morning. We are early November, and they had good luck. Wow. You guys slipped over to Bend and shot a couple or what? Wow, look at that. How wide are they, Angus?
I think this one's probably about 17, 17 and a half wide, maybe.
Every inch of that, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
So are you guys going to fess up to who got which, or is it just sort
This
of
is Dad's.
Okay,
This is Dad's
all right,
here.
all right.
Boy, that's a beauty.
Darn it.
Right here somewhere.
Look at that guy.
Right around here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, over toward my house, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are just about as good as West Coast blacktail get, aren't they?
Well, they
Just about.
They make them bigger, but these
Not a
guys
lot.
They're decent. They're a couple of decent bucks.
They're in the top 10%, huh?
Probably, yeah.
That's a little different deal there, isn't it? That's kind of cool. I don't think I've ever seen that before on a blacktail.
Who knows why?
Yeah.
So how far from right here did you pop those guys?
They might not do anything like
cl-
that at all. Is it funny?
Closer to my house.
So that's what, 3/4 of a mile over the hill?
Probably
Is he all beat up?
maybe a mile, 3/4 from
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
you're right.
yeah, pretty
And
nice.
then
Oh, really?
he was
You saw
gonna,
him do it?
he was running back to get this
Yeah.
rig, and I was walking back home,
Cool.
and I see that one standing there. So I called him on his phone, and I said, "Hey, come back,
You had service.
come back." Yeah, well, barely.
That even changed.
So he hot-footed it back over the hill, and I described where that one
How long
was,
ago was that?
and he came from the other direction and shot him.
That makes it worth doing. Well, these guys make it worth doing.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. We're happy for
Well,
sure.
I've been working at it. I'm in a big butt contest at work.
You just won it.
So there's some, there's some there's some stuff that
Yeah.
reasons. I took today off because it was his last day off of the season. Friday's the last day, so I took today off, and we were gonna go up the river, and then we just decided, let's just come around here.
Yeah, good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Then we were gonna go up
Yeah, you
on
better
Gallagher,
better than this, huh?
but it was all fogged in.
Yeah.
So then we just took off from the house.
So West Coast blacktail is what we grow around here. There are a few whitetail. Have you got whitetail infiltrating up here, Aaron?
There's a few in
A
the
few.
lower areas, yeah.
They used to be really protected. They're starting to loosen up on that a little bit.
Yep.
And then you go east of here, up other side of the Cascades, you get into mule deer, which are about twice this size, but not a bit better eating. So anyway, it was a good morning on the Swan Ranches. That went pretty well. The saw made all the difference. There was lots of reinforcing in there. It was a real heavy gauge welded wire mesh. Would not have come out with a hammer, I don't care how hard you hit it. And so we've got the boards back in. It's time to build the 2 steps in the landing, and we'll get this back to fully functional for Maxine, undoubtedly before the Christmas party coming up in a month and a half. We've been talking about doing this for several years, and the thing that made it survivable was the substructure was still in good shape, or at least good enough shape to just attach a new veneer to. So it's in place. Maxine got it oiled. The last thing I'm doing here today is putting some bats on this enclosure around his firewood elevator, and that's what we're going to show you first. The deck is just routine. It's just deck work. I mean, the spacers, you saw me weld up a set of spacers. They work really good. I had loaned my 1/4-inch spacers, and that's what we decided we wanted, but we got her done. But Cy's going to give you a tour of how he heats his house. Entirely with wood, 10 to 12 cords a year.
10.
10 cords a year, cuts off his place. He and Maxine, for the last couple years, his grandkids have helped him split it, but they cut it and they haul it, and Maxine counts the pieces. She likes to count. And so she can tell you how much wood's here, and we're going to give you a look at how Cy and Max heat their place, and it doesn't matter if the electricity is on or off.
She knows how many are in there.
Wow.
And she has for years, Nate.
She knows she gets about 240 pieces per load. She counts the loads.
I had a thought that when I got this house insulated and did 12 inches of insulation in the ceiling and 12 inches in the floor and 6-inch walls, that I could get by with the 3.5 cords that I could get under the deck, but it didn't work.
It takes 10 cords. But when we show you this stack, you're going to see that the wood pile comes clear up under the deck, which is why you saw that white membrane draped in between the joists in these cells. It is keeping the water that falls onto the deck, falls through the cracks, it takes it out to the edge, so his wood pile stays dry, and they stay dry when they're bringing in the wood at night.
All the wood comes off our property here. Maxine backs the truck up to here and then throws it down and restacks it. And this pile is 16 feet long outside, about 10 feet wide, and runs anywhere from 6 feet down to about 5 feet tall. Then there's another space inside here. We're down under the deck right now, and this is where we put the wood in the dumbwaiter that cranks the wood up through the floor and delivers it up by the stove in the living room. most of the wood in here is either madrone or fir, but we do get an occasional oak. The madrone and the fir leave very little ash. It burns so clean. There is some maple in here this year because I had a couple trees that were down during that snowstorm that I had to clean up. And that's what we try to do. We cut a lot of the dead trees and the trees that have fallen, and we had quite a bit of log and slash that contributed to the fir wood.
How's maple for firewood?
Maple's pretty good. It's a semi-hard wood here. On the East Coast, it's real hard, but here, our local maple, the big leaf maples, it's better than nothing, but it's not as good as the madrone. Madrone's a really, really good wood.
If you could convert every piece here to madrone, you would, or is it handier to have like an assortment for certain reasons?
It's handy to have an assortment because you can build a hotter fire quicker with the fir, and it's a quicker combustion and it burns up faster.
Nice.
But you can also make a really hot fire with a good madrone wood too. It'll make that stove up there turn red. I'm serious. It'll get a red glow to the doors.
Okay, let's see the Dumbwaiter. I take it you built it.
Yes. The Dumbwaiter is pretty simple. The cage is up right now, and there's a series of pulleys here and a cable. I'll let it down. It's got wood in it right now. This is just a little boat winch that activates it. It takes 94 turns to go from the top to the bottom. And you just fill it full of wood.
So have you changed this at all since you first designed it and built it, or is this the original kind of thing that's...
It's the original way I did it.
How come you don't have a drill or something on that crank to expedite that?
I've thought about putting an electric winch on it, and it'd be real easy to do. The problem is sometimes when the electricity goes out, you don't have
Oh.
the electricity, and it makes it real hard to get the wood up.
Hey, didn't that happen? How long were you without power a couple years ago?
19 days.
Wow.
And this was run up on almost twice a day then. But I'll run it back up, and then we'll show you what it looks like inside. Unfortunately, it takes a while. I was having trouble with the other one, pulling the handle on it and getting it to go. We put these double 6x6s in here because I was worried about the load on the roof, but I've banged my head on it so many times.
Would have been better to let the roof sag.
No, you'd think I'd learn.
No muscle memory on that, man.
I built the stove about 45, 48 years ago because it kept burning out, the ones that we had.
Huh.
And
What do you mean burning out?
when you have a really hot fire in a lot of those lightweight stoves, they'd burn the steel out.
The steel scales away on the inside. Shrinks and shrinks and shrinks.
And we had a Ashley stove that was a real good stove and had a thermostat controlling the heat on it, but it only lasts a year or so, and then you'd have to get a new one.
But the fire's burning round the clock from the middle of October to the end of April, pretty much.
Yeah, this fire doesn't go out until April.
You only light a fire once a year?
No, actually, that's not quite true because especially with this really dry wood, it's I have trouble keeping it overnight. Now we've got some big oak pieces in here, and if I can get 3 of them in there at night, we had one log that was half burnt and a good bed of coals this morning, so I just threw some more on it.
So you built the stove 40 years ago, just for this house, or did you
No,
have it used?
no, I had it in the other house down at the main ranch when we had the.
Has it been scaling away and like wearing out after all these years?
No, I fire bricked the whole bottom of it, and
Let's go see it. I
Yeah.
think we're all wanting to take a look. Let's go take a look at your.
I have had to replace the fire bricks once in it.
Wow.
They
All right,
crumbled
I'll
up.
follow you.
Okay. This stove will take a chunk that's 36 inches long, and it's about 22 inches deep. So it'll take a pretty good size piece of firewood, and I like to have some big ones because it's not airtight. I didn't get the doors so I could gasket them or anything, but it's a pretty good sized wood box, and it's lined with fire brick up to this level right here. So it keeps the iron from burning up inside it. And we can go over here to the Dumbwaiter. You might want a shot of that inside of that, Nate.
Yeah, I'll get one.
The big 20-inch pipe here goes down through this floor another 5 feet to the bottom of the foundation, and it's on a 1-inch plate that's bolted to that foundation, and then it's got a rebar matrix that's at this level, and there's, I think, 5 or 6 inches of concrete there. And then we did the stairway around the pipe, and it made a real good anchor for the inside of the stairs. Now that's another thing the county didn't like, because they wanted me to put another banister in the middle because the treads on the stairs got too narrow. And your dad would know more about that, but they want a certain width.
Yeah, they want a 6-inch minimum width on winders, and so they wanted you to restrict the
Right.
traffic pattern to where you didn't get down in there. But you weren't worried about something like a certificate of occupancy anyhow, were you?
We never got it.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't approve the stovepipe either there. They wanted a metal asbestos pipe up through there. So
But you have another 8-inch pipe centered in that
Inside
20-inch
that,
pipe.
right.
So that is just as bulletproof as a pipe can be. Just no UL listing.
and it goes clear through, and then there's a cap on the 20-inch that the 8-inch pipe goes through another 4 or 5 feet up.
So it draws really hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And this is pretty huge. Are you cooking on the stove from time? I mean, I guess when the power's out, you
When
are.
the power's out, we can cook, we can warm water to take a bath in or whatever, to wash a little bit.
Look at this. Let me bring this up to you, Nate. So
Wow.
that's an original design, or at least I've never seen it.
Yes, it is.
I haven't seen Darrell Nelson or anybody else do that.
Wow.
Pretty cool. A little bit of gas welding on the ears, but we don't need to mention that, do we?
Wow, that's cool.
Lovely.
And this brush was made from a pinto horse we had.
Dearly departed pinto horse.
Really? You
Yeah.
stuffed the horsehair in those holes and turned it into a.
Yeah, you cut a 1/4-inch hole in there and then wind the hair around a staple and then drive it down through with a punch and drive it into the oak block
Wow.
and then shear it off and make a brush.
That is cool. Huh. Do you find those little fans are actually circulating air, or are they more like a novelty? I never really.
I think they're a
Yeah.
novelty. I've tried to hold something up in front of it to have it blow smoke,
Yeah.
and it does a little bit, but
Yeah.
they're a weird little thing. I can really tell when the fire's getting low
Oh.
because it slows way down.
Oh, well, that's actually a use for it, maybe
Yeah.
as much as anything else, huh?
It tells me when I get up in the morning if it's still spinning real fast, I know I've been successful in getting my fire so it doesn't all consume
I
itself.
always thought like a big fire is putting off heat no matter what. You know what I mean? Like the heat's coming off of the stove. That's why I always kind of wondered to what extent it needs to get fanned out. But
That's why originally I was going to make a heat exchanger out of this big pipe. I was going to have I cut the holes up above for it, and I was going to have a fan in the pipe
wow.
so that it would suck air around it and then blow out upstairs.
Huh.
The other part of the cooking, probably the most cooking we do, is drying our jerky. And Maxine wires this tray up over the stove at about this elevation, and then puts her wet meat on here. When I say wet, it's not really wet, but it's still raw and green. And that's not green either. It's
Green's
No.
the wrong image.
wrong. Anyhow, it's fresh meat, and then she turns it over several times until it dries, and then she puts it in a bag and sends it to our grandchildren.
So it
And daughters.
lays on that screen. You don't like hang it from
No,
those
it
little-
just lays on the screen.
Wow.
And it's a galvanized screen, but the temperature never gets high enough to create any kind of difficulty. It's just dry.
It hasn't.
Yeah.
If you were gonna build that stove over, would you do anything different?
I might spend a little more time on the doors,
Oh.
and I learned that if you get boilerplate, it won't warp. The door's warped, and they've got a definite out sweep to them.
Huh.
And I could probably press them straight again and reinforce them, but it hasn't been that big of an issue.
Yeah.
And that way I could put a little rim. It has a rim around the inside and partially around the outside, which would hold a fireproof gasket.
Mm-hmm.
But I never got around to putting that in. So,
Yeah.
well, one thing, we have to keep the little tea kettles on there all the time full of water because the wood fire dries the air out in the house so bad that she keeps those tea kettles full and they
Really?
put a little more humidity back in the air.
That's interesting. Cool.
And there's one other thing to mention, that Cy really hit the foundation on this place hard. There's lots of concrete. He did the excavation. He walked the pad in nice and tight. And he's got a little suspended slab right here that he talked about, 5 or 6 inches thick, up in the air, tile on it, not a crack. And so this is one of those rare examples of concrete that not only is not going to crack, but hasn't cracked. And so it's that can be done, but it's just, if you're going to spend some money, the foundation's a place to do it. And this is evidence of that.
Yeah, this is held up pretty good. Maxine and I put the flooring in,
Oh, no.
and when we came around to putting this around this is ash that was cut on the place, and I tied her to the pipe with a horse lead rope, and she pushed on this with her feet
Oh, is that right?
and scooted on her butt around
push
this
the bend
circle,
in there.
and I screwed it down and glued it, and
Leg press.
yeah.
That's really cool. That floor's probably pretty warm too. If you're like barefoot, it probably feels pretty good, huh?
It's really warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How thick are the walls on
The 1/4-inch plate.
this? So why do other ones burn out? Do they not have any fire brick in them?
A lot of them do now, Nate. They're building them with fire brick.
Oh, but back the ones you were getting
Right.
before, it was
Right.
just steel. Okay, that makes sense.
And not as thick either.